The NCAA has cracked down on LSU with the death penalty, and after over 10 years of barely being able to win a game, I'm going to rebuild them back to their glory days and win a national title. I did this on the vanilla game, and I basically just turned off auto recruiting. I didn't put a single recruit on the board, and each and every year I forced losses on all the teams until the team pretty much got as bad as it could be, and here are the results. For some reason it stopped letting me go back to see the past 20 years, but the one win you'll see per year is against default FCS teams. Eventually it seems like there was a scheduling bug where I just could not take them off the schedule, and you can't force a win in those games, but the main thing is that we are in the year 2037, and every year since 2024 we have been either 0-12 or 1-11. And when I bring up this roster here, you might think, hey, that doesn't look too bad, but you'd be very wrong. We only have 28 total players on the roster out of a potential 85, and there are so many holes on the team. Now, just for example, we have one halfback. We have no players at all at left tackle or left guard, and basically the game gave us walk-ons that I had no control over, and I think they gave us just enough to be able to maybe field a team. Think of this like the starting 11 on offense and defense, along with the kicker and the punter. That'll give you 24 players, and then the game makes sure that you have at least 6 or so receivers, maybe a few cornerbacks, so that's where the 28 comes from if I had to guess. But I do want to call your attention to this huge liar at the top of the screen. In no conceivable world is this team going to be a 76 overall. Now, if you just look at the raw ratings of just the 28 guys on my roster, and you just completely ignored the fact that I'm missing 57 potential roster spots, and maybe you just closed your eyes and pretended not to see the gaping holes in our depth chart, this team would still be in the low 60s because I did the math. And also something interesting here is that you cannot go below 2.5 stars with LSU. I tried to get them down to a 1-star team, but after seeming like 4 or 5 extra years, it would never drop below 2.5. So that's just something to know about the game. But at a 76 overall, personally, that kind of reinforces my opinion that EA did not want any team under any circumstance to ever be below 70. It's like the IGN ratings, guys. And if you want to know how the world of college football is looking like in 2037, Oregon is coming off a national championship win. Teams like Syracuse, UCLA has risen up, and even number 15 NC State, they have one of the best overall rosters in the country, but I guess none of that really matters for us at the moment. And you can see that even though we lost nearly every game for 11 years, there's still going to be some 4-stars interested. They know LSU's coming back, so maybe they want to get in on the action, but I do need you to brace yourself because we need to talk about the team needs. Now, this number is cartoonish. We need 64 players. I repeat, the team needs 64 spots filled so that every need is filled, and we just have so much work to do. Now, my strat might seem a little bit weird at first, but I'm going to add players that maybe already have me first on their list. I'm going to be trying a lot of different recruiting things this video, and we're going to start with this. So there's only 2 3-stars, there's a 4-star, and you might wonder why I would even bother with 2 stars, but they are JUCOs. They'll be a little bit higher overall. Maybe they can help out early. But if a player is first, you just have a chance at an instant commit, and I wanted to see if I could just maybe get a couple of those right now, and you will see that I will sign Paul, Missouri instantly. I don't think this is really worth it because the chance just, it feels so low after playing through all these years with this dynasty, but I did test it out a lot. And I need every single thing that I can get, but I'm just really going to go for the 4-stars that are interested, at least see if they'll come to the team. And when we look back at recruiting, it's going to be the main focus, and I think I'm going to end up maybe spreading ourselves too thin. I'm trying to get as many players as possible, and I'm being kind of greedy, and I guess all I can do is just see how it plays out. So now we're skipping ahead to week 3, and here's all you need to know about our team. I cannot beat Georgia State in sim. I couldn't even score a touchdown. We lose 17-6. At this point, I'm also starting to lose recruits rapidly, but I'm starting to get visits scheduled. But Boston College is going to hang 32 on us. The following week, UConn's going to beat us by a touchdown, and I guess it is kind of cool to see UConn ranked. I would like to rebuild that team as well. It might be the next video I do. But we're 1-3 on the season, and I'm about to jump in the Texas game as my first user game, and honestly, I just want to see how this team does. Death Valley takes on a different meaning when you get the death penalty, and even though we are 1-3, I gotta see how this team plays for myself. I expected the worst, but I'm actually kind of alright, but where things get interesting is when I break out of a sack here, and they give Sheets the whole field to run through, and I'm in the red zone just a few plays later, and I'm gonna throw a little out route here, and we're gonna score. Now they're gonna immediately get a bomb here, and they're just gonna out-athlete me, but notice that I actually tackle, and that's because I really put a focus on retooling the sliders to make both myself and the computer have to work a little bit harder to score, and maybe you actually see some defensive showdowns. But what you're going to see here is that I actually just stuffed them for 3 straight plays. On the next drive is where the cracks start to show. I get sacked, I can't outrun these fast Texas ends, and the pressure on the next play is going to force a bad throw interception, and just like that, they tied it all up. Now they're going to score again, and things just kind of go downhill fast. I start throwing more interceptions, and I mess with sliders a lot just to make things more challenging. And when I'm playing with this team, I could maybe get the short stuff to work a little bit, but I'm already down 35-7 in the fourth, and I can definitely say that this team is not ready, and I think at this point, I've already seen enough. So it's very clear that I need to scratch and claw to get any wins, and recruiting is going to be my ticket. This year's pretty much already lost, so I just don't think playing my full 3 user games is going to do me much here. Now Daryl Durant is going to be the first player to sign at left guard, and that's pretty much needed, but I'm losing a lot of battles here. The recruiting trail not going great, and I need to maybe pivot off of some stuff. So let's get to the end of the season here, and you can see it's went pretty much like all the other seasons before this, and I can tell you right now, this team is definitely not 77 overall. What surprises me is the blowouts here. Just look at some of these scores: 38-7 to Auburn, 55-14 to Florida, 41-0 to Tennessee, who are actually the #1 team in the country. And I guess at the end of the day, this is kind of what you expect from a team that only has 28 players on it. But if you look at the playoffs, NC State, they won it all. I told you they had an incredible overall. But what surprised me here is Louisiana Tech running the gauntlet, and I guess 2037 is just a strange year for football. So 10 of my 28 people are going to leave, and I want you guys to look at the transfer portal because absolutely nobody wants to come to this school, and I can't really say I blame them. After putting my full focus on recruiting, I actually got the number 30 overall class, and that includes 0 transfers, so this is pretty big. Now the teams you see on these recruiting lists don't look too much different, but I do got to call out Syracuse. They've just become like a powerhouse, and good for them for getting the top class. Now to look a little bit deeper into these recruits, Gurman, Power, Durant, they are all my top nationally rated guys, and they're all on the offensive line, so that's just a really solid base. Now combine that with solid players like Homer at wideout or Hagens at halfback, and I think we might be on the way. And if you look at it overall, I lost 10 players, I signed 22, so that means my roster should be around 38 players right now. And some of these guys are pretty good. At wideout, all 3 of these guys have over 92 speed, and when you look at the line, Power starts at 76, Gehrman 75, Durant 74, and I think I need to start maybe focusing on depth. We'll see how that goes. But I think my biggest problem last year was that I could not redshirt, but I can do that a little bit more this year at the cost of a little bit more depth, but I don't really care too much about the short term. I'm just thinking of the future. And this year we got 11 4-stars initially interested, and like I said earlier, I'm trying a lot of things out with recruiting. I'm just seeing what else I can do, trying new strategies, and I'm going to just put a handful of 5-stars on my board, then throw a few of the 4-stars, and we're going to see how that works out. So I ended up finding 4 total gems. We'll see what happens, but for me, I think John Warrior here at wideout, he has to be the best guy on the board. Now 6'1", not really the worst size in the world, but he has 100 speed, which is a glitch. It can't be over 99. 95 acceleration, he has the takeoff ability, and that just means that I really want this guy on the team. Now we'll monitor the situation, but I think I'm just going to hop into the first game against number 9 Oklahoma State, and I'm just going to gauge if it's going to be worth it for me to sweat it out and play all 3 of my user games with just 38 players in year 2. Pete and the Cowboys are ready, and you might ask, how ready are they? Well, the very first play of the game, I audible to a bubble screen. They read it like a book, they pick it off, and it's 7-0 instantly. And the theme for this game is drops. Our wide receivers can't really catch, and I know they're not really wide open, but I think if you ever want to be a good team and take it to the next level, you have to bring in some of these contested passes. And I guess I do get that it's in the rain, but on their drive, I just can't keep them off the field, and they really just don't break a sweat getting back into the end zone. And I'm going to keep giving myself more offensive possessions, but my receivers, they're getting blanketed, I'm getting strip sacked, and I'm going to end up losing this one 41-27, and it really wasn't even that close. I think the next week here, I'm going to give myself another chance because maybe it's unfair to be on the road against a top 10 team in the rain, so let's try a weaker opponent in Boston College. Now I come out and they're just insisting on having 5 men in the box, so I'm going to start just running the rock, pounding it out, get some solid gains. But I think soon it becomes apparent that my main problem is offensive line. Even on quicker throws where I just make a little fast read in a couple of seconds, the pressure is already there, and it's really hard to be productive in that situation. And this play kind of sums up the defense here. I have a really good call, but I have absolutely zero pressure. And when a quarterback just has this much time to sit back there, take a drink of water, put his feet up, doze off for a minute, he's just going to be able to find a guy like this wide open, and that's going to lead to the first score of the game. From there, I'm just going to throw another pick. That's going to lead to Boston College scoring another touchdown. And at this point, I'm just looking for signs of life. And after struggling for a while, I'm finally going to get a crease in the zone with a quads formation. I'm going to find my guy Sermon. He's going to get us a touchdown. That looked pretty good. But I think we can just take this one to the fourth quarter. Things are not good. It's 42-14, and I'm just trying to run some offense. Now here the free safety takes the absolute worst position to defend the deep ball, and Sam's is going to take this one for 60 yards. And I've seen a couple of positive things in this one, but when you look later, I think Boston College might have taken their foot off the gas, but I'm still really trying here. And you're going to see them just kind of stack the box. It's going to leave the outsides a little bit open. I'm going to hit a streak on the left, and soon after that, I'm going to follow up with a pretty great throw here, and that's going to put us within 2 scores. They would score a field goal, and Sheets right here is going to fumble on this really big gain. But what I like about this team is that we're fighting, and while it does on the surface look like a 45-28 defeat, I think I saw just a little bit of potential, maybe a couple of dogs on the defense. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're not a completely brain dead team. Now this doesn't change the fact that Boston College is an 83 overall team and we could not stop them at all, but I think that does mean this season's not really looking too well. This is post-edit chicken dog here. Now I'm a dad. Oftentimes I need to pause my recordings. I need to go take care of business. And this, along with several other times, I'm just gonna forget to unpause. Now it's probably a blessing here because I did play Arkansas, but they just absolutely destroyed me. But the long and the short of it is that this season is a wash. I was pretty much like 1-5 on the season. Recruiting wasn't looking so hot, but things did begin to take a little turn. I ended up getting some solid signings, and I want to shine a light on them. Now Stockton is the lone 5-star recruit, and combined with the other high-tier lineman I got last year, it sets me up for the future. But I did get Warrior, and he was that big recruit I was excited for. Now you can see that this is already a really heavy wideout recruiting class. There's Warrior, Fleming, Crumpler. They all play their part in the future. But I want to talk about Cliet real quick. In a class with a ton of wide receivers, he was the guy that I liked the least. And at the end of this season, going into position changes, I'm going to move him to running back just to fill up the depth chart. And to be perfectly honest, his best case scenario was just to be a decently developed backup. But I think what's really cool about dynasties, and one of the reasons that I love playing them so much, is when you have like an unlikely recruit, you just kind of write them off, you send them to another position, but they come back to like work hard and they play like a big role later. But I do just want you to keep that in the back of your mind for now. Just remember Cliet, the exiled receiver. But now let's get back to that original audio. And I think if we look at the remainder of the season, it was hit or miss. I had several one-possession games against Rice, Mississippi State, Alabama, Texas A&M, and it looks like Kentucky was pretty close. But imagine this, imagine if we were just a little bit better. And I get it, because 1-11 is not what you want to see, but I think the team is fighting. And if maybe just a few more dominoes or lucky breaks fell in our favor, I think this season could have been something like 6-6. I don't really want to deal in what ifs, but I'm just saying it's not as bad as it really looks. Here's the bracket for this year, and I played this game a lot, and I think this is the first time ever that I've seen a team go undefeated all the way front to back and win the national championship. Now UCLA is dominant, and they are your 16-0 champions in 2038. And look here, UAB, they made a pretty deep run as well, but this looked like a pretty cool season. I wish I was a part of it. This year we got 5 seniors leaving, but 3 more guys will be transferring. Now these are some really good players, so it's a shame that Hodges specifically at the center position, he's going to transfer out. But I guess if you just keep the glass half full here, it's only 8 players that are leaving. And recruiting felt a lot harder this year, but at the end of the day, I did have a marginal improvement overall. We had the 27th ranked class, and I guess that 5-star signing did help a lot. But I'm just learning about recruiting here, learning the ins and outs and seeing what I can get away with. And I think if you look at it, all my stud signings were on offense. Stockton at the top, 5-star. And out of my 5 4-stars that I signed, 4 of them were wideouts. and the other one was a tight end, but John Warrior, he's the one I'm really most excited about. So we had 22 guys signed. We lost 8. If you do the math from last year, that means we should have a roster size of about 52, which hopefully means that I'm ready to start winning a few more games, because guys, I'm 2-22 so far, not that great. But looking at this roster now, we actually have people in the right places on the depth chart, and 8 players over 80 overall. That's pretty good. But what's most exciting to me is that there are only 4 seniors on this team, meaning that if I redshirt some players, maybe I get a good recruiting class, and my quarterback is there for his senior year, I could make a pretty huge leap next year, but we can't look that far ahead. We have to focus on the now. This year, there are 12 4-stars with initial interest, and my strategy is going to be similar to last year. I'm going to strategically pick a few 5-stars that are in my pipelines, and I'm not going to go after all the 4-stars because most of the recruits are on the offensive side of the ball, and I think what's going to help me the most is filling in my needs, because if you look at it, I still need 38 spots, and I don't want to neglect things like linebacker or the defensive line, and I think a strategy where I don't invest as heavily into the top of the class and maybe I focus on maybe signing more guys, I think that would be better, especially when you're having a lot of holes and you're needing just to fill up your roster. But I'm learning. This is my first time doing this strategies, and I'm just testing things out and learning, so I'm just having fun with it. After a free FCS win, I'm actually going to get the win over Nevada by a field goal, and this is huge because this is the most that LSU has won since 2024. I'm 2-0. I'm feeling pretty good right now. So I think my user games this year need to focus on when recruits are coming in, and Wyoming is a game that I do have a few big recruits, and I'm hoping to impress them a little bit. So let's see how this one goes. They're going to score first, and my defense isn't too great, but my offense feels pretty good, but I am sloppy with the ball. I'm going to give it back early. And look at this play here. I accidentally pump fake to throw it to R1. I don't mean to, and then the computer just makes me awkwardly step up. My arm is going to hit my halfback, and that's going to pop the ball out. The lineman is going to intercept it, and I guess, hey, sometimes these things happen, right? But I'm down 17-0. Homer will get loose on the streak next to give us our first touchdown of the day, and they just continue to do whatever they want. I'm struggling, and near halftime it's already 27-7, but I think this is a pretty good test for our 1-minute offense. And I'm going to find Colin up the middle here. He's going to pull us within 2 scores, and picking back up in the middle of the third, let's introduce you guys to Warrior. He gets the 1v1 coverage, but this guy, he has generational speed. And if I'm being positive, Sam's at halfback has really surprised me, and I'm impressed with his ball carrying, and I could say good things about most of the receivers, but in the fourth quarter, Crumpler, he's going to catch a pass. He's going to put us up in the game 28-27, and we've scratched and we've clawed our way all the way back into this one. They're going to score, go for 2, they're going to go up 7, but I fire right back to Homer, and look at this contested catch where he hangs on, but the defender's going to fall down. And I do look at the end right here. I think Wyoming was mad that I taunted here, but I left them too much time. It's Heisman. You know how Heisman likes to cheat, and they would eventually kick the game winner. So what I learned from this one is that my offense can be pretty good. They can be pretty explosive, but my defense, pretty bad. They leave a lot to be desired. The next week, I barely lost to number 7 by just a field goal, and number 5 Alabama is a pretty big game. Now, this is a little bit rhetorical here. Is it questionable that I chose this game to send most of my recruits to when I can't even beat Wyoming? Yes, but let's see how it goes. Now keep in mind, it's been like 15 years at this point since LSU has really won any game of any measure, and I need something to change the culture and maybe get some people paying attention, and I'm immediately going to throw a pick, so that's not too great, but I am ready to answer back by getting a pick of my own on the next play, so we're just kind of back and forth here early. And I think Warrior, he's a really special receiver. Now this slant, it's just a slant route. He takes it almost a distance, but at the end of the day, he only gets 42 yards, but I'll take that any day of the week. Now here Sheets is stepping up, he's finding lanes to run, and after getting into the red zone, Warrior is going to find a spot on the out route, and he's going to give us a pretty big score. And they're going to start to run the no huddle, so I'm kind of struggling here. But when they make it to the red zone, I will find my footing. Death Valley's kind of rocking for the first time in decades. It has this kicker rattled, and they're going to miss a field goal. Now guys, it is what it is right here. I mess up, and I'm going to make a very bad play. It's going to be a pick 6. And this is exactly what you cannot do against the number 5 team in the country, but let's just take a deep breath and be smarter. And I guess speaking of smarter, I'm down 14-7. Now they get the ball back. They're going to score again. They're going to go up 21-7. And for me, it's just really insane how far this game swung so fast. And I just feel helpless because I'm driving on the next drive. I slide with the quarterback just a little bit too late, and just like that, they're going to punch the ball back and they're going to get it back. Now, I would hold on the red zone again and force another field goal. They're actually going to miss again. So somehow, I'm a little bit in this game. It's not completely over yet. I just got to get it together. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this really badly overthrown ball. And it's another interception. That's going to lead to a 28-7 halftime deficit. I love it. And by the time I have a miscue on the option here, the game is already 45-7. And I think one thing is extremely clear here. I'm planets away, maybe galaxies away from competing with these top schools. And I gave up 55 unanswered points after going up 7-0. And I think this was a real wake up call. Hey, I'm just not ready, because I really did feel helpless right there. And after seeing that, we're going to simulate the rest of the season. And if you look at it, I actually pick up 2 more wins. So a 4-8 season might not look that good to most people, but wins over Mississippi State, Texas A&M, they were great stepping stones. And I didn't even finish last in the SEC, which is pretty cool. In this year's bracket, Jacksonville State, I grew up near Jacksonville State, they got a bye and they actually made it to the semifinals, but Florida State, they took them out, and ultimately they beat Oregon to claim the 2039 national championship by just a single point. I bet it was a great game, but unfortunately EA will not let you watch computer games. This year was phenomenal for players leaving. We only have 4 seniors leaving, no transfers, and only one of these guys were in their 70s, so it's not much of a loss. And once again, not a single transfer wants to come to my team. Now, in recruiting, I struggled a lot, and I felt like we made the wrong decisions over and over. I felt like I went after the wrong guys. I felt like I didn't pivot off of guys that we were losing fast enough. And despite having a much better year on the field, this class kind of sucked. It comes in at only 59th in the nation, and we only signed 18 recruits. Chicolo at guard and Harper at receiver, they're pretty much the best of the bunch, but there's just not a lot of guys in this class. Now, going into the 4th year, some talent is really starting to develop, specifically those big recruits in the O-line. Power and Durant, they're 92 overall, and since this is the last year where we have those walk-ons, we only have 6 total seniors to worry about at the end of the year. Going into year 4, I'm down to about 28 needs. That's not too bad. Most of them are on defense, and I don't want to make the same mistakes as last year in recruiting. I want to learn from my mistakes. So this year I'm scrapping the 5-star dream. It really destroyed my early momentum last year, and today I'm just going to focus on a tight 12-person board of interested 4-stars, and I'll be sure to pivot off of them if it starts to get bad or I keep falling behind. So after week 1, I think recruits like Steve Handy or Richard Apple, they're just not worth the hassle, so it's already time just to move on. Vanderbilt is the week I'm going to start these heavy recruits on a visit, which means I'll need to hop into that game, and it's like 3 weeks into the season now. I beat Central Michigan by 20, I take care of South Alabama by 2 touchdowns, and I'm going to hop into this home game against Pitt to see if maybe I can get off to a hot 3-0 start. So I'm going to start off this game by forcing a punt, and I'm going to go for it on an early 4th down because I just need to set the tone. I'm going to pick it up, and now it's finally time for Warrior to start getting loose. Now, this is a great route, it's a great throw, it's a great catch, and we need to take a deeper look at this because he caught it, and you can see the turf kind of come up where he drug his foot, and I think this is one of my favorite touchdowns that I've thrown so far in this game. Now, picking back up tight at 7, this pass right here was so nice that Pitt had it reviewed, but we did get it, and Sheet is kind of lighting these guys up. He's picking up pass after pass, and he's going to cap off another here with a beauty. And I'm very impressed with how this offense has risen up from previous years. Now, they would drive it down, they would keep the game tied up, but we just keep the fireworks going. They're going to attempt to blitz here, and I'm going to find Cone. He's going to show some disrespect by slowing down at the end of the end zone. Get that nice little disrespect in on that little celebration. Now, they would score again. This one is quickly becoming a good old-fashioned shootout, and on the next drive, I would just keep things flowing with a big game from Cone, and then Sheet would step up with a scramble, and that's going to put us up 7 once again. But I think you already know how this one goes. There's absolutely no defense in this game. They're going to chuck it up deep. They're going to break a tackle. They're going to tie it back up. Now, so once again, I don't have the footage for the last bit of the game, and that's my fault, but just to make it really quick, this is one of those games to where if you fail to score, or maybe you make a mistake, you lose. Now, I made a mistake, and in this really close, high-powered game, I'm going to lose 42-35, but I really like the progression of my team at this point. In week 4, I would lose to Kentucky by 5 points. FCS looks kind of bugged here. It's just showing like a weird Air Force screen, but we did win 27-0. That means we are 3-2 on the season. And Vanderbilt is gigantic for recruiting. This could pretty much make or break our class. Now I'm going to get a stop, stall on a drive, miss a field goal, and then we're going to step up, we're going to stuff the run, and they're going to miss a field goal. Now Fleming is going to get loose later to get us the first score after a calculated drive where Sam starts to take over, and he's really showing his dominance here by just running it down their throat. He's going to cap it off to give me a 2-score lead. In the third, I make a 53-yard field goal, and I'm very happy I made this. It's pretty rough making field goals on Heisman. But going ahead to the fourth, Warrior, he's been a little quiet today, but they give us this one-on-one coverage here, no safety help. That's going to put us up 24-0. And we would go on to win a dominant defensive game, 24-6. Now we're 4-2. We've matched our win total from the last year already. Things are looking good. And now we can see those recruits start to pile in. I pick up 4 different 4-stars, and that lets us start to snowball a little bit in recruiting because we can start putting our resources in other recruits already this early. The next week I would lose to Alabama once again, and it's also very unfortunate that Mississippi State would just thump us hard, and we're back to 4-4 already. And this loss was tough because it put our championship contender rating down, which made me lose the deal breaker on 4 recruits, and I'm desperately going to try to hang on to them just for now because I'm hoping that a win against Auburn in my last user game will get us back that required championship contender. So I think this is kind of like a must win to keep the progression going. So here we got a good drive going. I'm using my legs, I'm running the ball, and I think if I want to win this game, I need to incorporate Warrior, and that's exactly what I do. He's gonna get loose here on a touchdown and put us up early. Now they're gonna drive, it's third down, and keep in mind they ran like 7 straight times at this point, so I take a gamble with a blitz, and of course, this of all times is when they decide to actually throw it and it burns me. Next I'm gonna throw a pick, and I don't want to complain, but 99% of the times you get hit in the pocket, the ball just kind of goes down real quick. So let me ask you this, what are the odds that you get hit and the ball goes right to their guy perfectly, to the point to where he doesn't even have to move? Now this is Heisman tomfoolery at its finest, and on the return, he goes through one of my guys, no one else can take a correct angle, and at this point, I was just over it, and I don't really want to talk about it in this specific game anymore. We will talk about Heisman later. Later, I am going to get Warrior deep. I'm going to go 3 and out on the goal line. I have to kick a chip shot field goal. That makes it 14-9. Next, I'm going to get perhaps the best user read and user pick I've ever gotten in my entire life. So I pull this off, and what do you guys think happens with this newfound momentum? What could possibly happen on Heisman? Well, the computer, it looks at me and it says, me, like a little toddler, and I'm gonna fumble with my quarterback straight back into the end zone, and like a little pickpocket thief, they're gonna get their touchdown back because that's just how it goes. And I cannot be alone with how unfair this game can feel at times on Heisman. It's infuriating, and we'll talk about it much more in this video. So rather than cry about it, I'm just gonna throw a streak, score in one play, and if the computer wants to be a big wiener, they can just hop in the bun because I'm sick of these things happening over and over. So in the second half, Warrior is starting to come alive. I start feeding him the ball more, and the more I do, the better he gets. He gets 2 huge passes to put us in good field position, and Sheets is gonna score, and we finally take the lead. So I get them into third down, I call a blitz, and finally, I get the right play call here because the quarterback is gonna go down, and I'm gonna get the computer off the field, so perfect. Now after that, Warrior steps up once again, he gets a big run after the catch, and I keep the momentum going with a huge touchdown pass to Fleming to extend our lead to 10. There's only 4 minutes left, but guys, remember one thing, this is Heisman. That means that I'm gonna give up the most unimpressive huge touchdown run while my team just looks at the guy as he runs by them. It really just kind of makes me sick to my stomach, and I would love to freeze frame this and look how bad the safety just stutters and doesn't run right, but I'm the bigger man. I'll talk about Heisman later, but it's whatever. Defense is awful in this game, we all know that. So on my drive, I'm gonna get first downs. I'm gonna burn their timeouts, but I do stall the drive on 3rd and 8, even though their DB pretty much tackles my receiver here, but I will miss the field goal, and I think what we're about to watch is college football 25 on Heisman in a nutshell. Now keep in mind they have no timeouts. There's less than a minute left, and they're just gonna connect every single pass. They're gonna play perfectly. They're gonna have the most precise calls to attack the exact spot my defense is weak in, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that this is each and every single game on Heisman against good opponents or like rivalry games, and it's just not a fun way to lose a game. Now maybe the first time or two it happens, you're like, man, that was a real fun game and the computer played really good, but when you played this game for like a month, you just no longer celebrate the times when you come from behind with a minute left because you just know what's gonna happen. But here's the silver lining. Now this may be a little bit childish of me, but if the computer is gonna just try to game the system here, I'm just gonna game them right back. I'm not gonna feel a single ounce of shame about it, and I'm just gonna throw the deep ball. I'm gonna wait for that safety to leave a 99 speed guy one-on-one because they don't know how to play prevent defense because EA's bad at coding AI, and I'm just going to score a touchdown. I'm not salty about it. It is what it is, but this is just your typical game on Heisman. It is what it is. And just like I predicted, this does put my championship contender back up, and let's see if it matters. It actually does. That's pretty cool. Those players who had the deal breaker, they're back in. I can start recruiting them again. That's great. But I do have Texas next, and I'm going to win 34-21. Now I'm both eligible for the first time since 2024. And just remember, keep in mind that it is like 2040 right now, so this is a pretty big deal. So I've done my job. I went 3-0 in user games. I can only sim my final 2 games. I'm going to lose 17-9 to South Carolina. That's going to drop our championship contender down once again. So to keep these recruits, it's going to come down to the very last week against Texas A&M. They are 4-7. We won last year, so let's see how it goes. We are going to win here 24-20. That's a 7-5 season. LSU isn't quite back yet, but this is exactly the kind of season that we needed. We will be playing fellow Louisiana school Tulane in the Liberty Bowl. And I think in the grand scheme of things, this game really doesn't mean much, but the fans are fired up. We're back in a bowl game, and I just want to go out there carefree, loose, and just show some fireworks. Early on, it's 3-0. They blitz, and Homer is going to get an easy, wide open touchdown. 14-10 near the half. Warriors just kind of showing off with this one. It's contested. He shakes off the tackle, then shakes off another one, and he just walks into the end zone. It is really close in the fourth quarter, but I see something here. It's a little safety blitz randomly, and my halfback Sam's, he's going to get loose, and that's going to put us up 28-20. And I'm going to end up winning this one 31-28. The score looks really close, but it really wasn't. I was up 11 at the end. They scored, but that's an 8-win season. Miami took home the championship this year, and the only G5 school in was East Carolina. Kentucky, out of all schools, got the #1 seed, so that was kind of cool to see. And I will talk about Sheets real quick. Now, this kid was with us when I took over. He was pretty much a walk-on. He stuck it out until the senior year, and now he has nearly 4,000 yards. He has a nice 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and he did really well for someone that came from pretty much the bottom. And I also got to talk about my boy here, Warrior. He was the highlight of the team for me. He was really fun to play with. He's a monster. He has over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Has me feeling pretty good about next year. What has me feeling even better is that there's only 6 seniors leaving, but I do wish this 80 overall free safety would stay, but he is going to leave, so we're losing 7. For National Signing Day, things are up as well. Now, I was focusing on interesting recruits and prospects here, and it really helped out, but I think that little mid-game lull where our championship contender rating went up and down, that really kind of cost us, but we still got the 14th best class, 27 total guys. That's going to be really great for our roster. The focus this year was defense. Now, you can see here, McGriff at the bottom, he's a D tackle along with Fatai. Now, 2 of these guys are linebackers. We really needed those, and honestly, we just got a lot of depth in the box. We now have 5 people overall that are 90 or above, and I love that most of them are on the line. 5 of the top 8 are up front, so I'm hoping these guys will buy some time. Maybe we can get the ball out to these fast receivers, and shout out to Sam's here. He's really stepping up, and he should be my focal point. I should be feeding him the ball. Now, quarterback is a little lacking this year, but Blank and Krentzel, they are roughly about the same overall as Sheet was, so we just haven't had the elite QB yet. In my opinion, as of right now, especially for this dynasty, was that quarterback doesn't matter with revamp passing because your accuracy doesn't matter. You'll never miss the quarterback. Maybe I'll talk more about that in like another video or something later. And I want to be careful with 5 stars, but we do have 4 interested in us, and this left tackle is making me kind of take a double take, so I guess I gotta go for him. And we essentially have more 4 stars than you can really count, so I'll try to strike some sort of balance. Now, team needs is finally down to a very manageable 16 total, which is really good. If you remember at the start, we were around to like almost 70, so I'm liking what I'm seeing here. We've really filled up the roster by now. So let's skip ahead. I'm going to start user games, and we're going to pick up in week 5. I'm 3-0. You can see I've won over TCU 27-11. Then I had a solid win by 8 over UConn, and the polls actually have us ranked now 25th in the country. I'm going to be strategical with my user games this year. I don't think we can win it all. I don't think we're that good. So Texas and Auburn are on my user list, mainly for the recruiting. Now, a game like South Carolina or Ole Miss, they might come up just for the same reason, but I think if I can take care of business in my user games, combined with the fact that we're already 3-0, I think maybe we can at least match last year's 8-win total and really set us up for a big year next year. Recruiting is also kind of hit or miss. I started with 13 people on my board. I've already lost a handful of 4 stars, but I am still in the running for these 2 5 stars. I've signed 2 strong safeties, a position that I desperately needed some talent at, but let's just jump in this game at Texas. My game plan is to be more conservative this year. My strategy with the UAB dynasty was that quarterback really didn't matter, don't focus on it too much. I have a 90 overall halfback, and I think that I need to feed him, and I also need to start to feed Warrior. But above everything, no mistake football has to be at the top of the list. So let's skip ahead. I'm up 3-0. I'm feeding Sam's. The game plan's going well, but I'm gonna fumble here, and this is something I absolutely hate about the game. I was clearly down, but the game would just give Texas the ball unless I manually challenged. Now my two issues here, let's go over them. Number one, realism would dictate that touchdowns and turnovers, they're just automatically reviewed. So someone that maybe is kind of dumb at the game, don't know much about football, they might just be cheated here. And number two, and the bigger problem for me personally, is that if this happens to the computer, they would just never challenge it. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just weird. But this drive does stall. I'm going to miss a field goal here. So now I'm going to go back to the computer AI and how they perform in 2-minute drills. Now what we are going to watch here is a 20-second drive where a team that was completely incompetent all game long in the rain, they start throwing dimes all over the field. And I've heard a lot of people say stuff like this doesn't exist, but I promise you that this kind of stuff happens a lot. Now seriously, their quarterback, he goes from this little struggling no-name guy to a prime Tom Brady. He completes 5 out of 5 passes for like 80 yards in just 27 seconds, and it's ridiculous how well you can play for the entire game, or half in this case, and just have it all whopped away in like half a minute. Now picking up in the third quarter, I'm up 10-7. I get another stop that's going to force a field goal. They're going to tie it up. Now picking up on my next drive on third down, this play might look like a routine incomplete pass, but it contains something horrendous. Now this linebacker is going to turn his back to my quarterback as soon as I release the ball, and he's going to blindly swat it down. Now just imagine this situation where like you're on the road against a ranked team and your linebacker is just going to turn his back to the quarterback as soon as he throws it. Now first of all, it just looks dumb, and just whenever I see these psychic abilities from the defense, it really just takes you out of the game. It takes you out of the immersion. And if you can't tell, this game was almost my breaking point, and that's hilarious because this one isn't done yet. Heisman is not done with me just yet. Keep that in mind. So let's get to that big finale. There's less than 2 minutes left. We got Blank at quarterback. He's untested, and he's going to have a defining drive that you really want to see from your quarterback. The line is blocking well. He's going to fit the ball into tight spots. I'm going to take the check downs, get solid yards, and he's even going to scramble when he has to. And when push comes to shove, all the chips are down on the table. He does exactly what he needs to do to win, and he gets it done. Now I tried to underthrow this little ball here to maybe get like some back shoulder action, and it does work, but it looks kind of goofy. But at this point, I score on a 2-minute drill. I take a 17-13 lead with less than a minute left, and I should be pumped up and excited, but I'm not. And that's because I know the computer. I've seen this time and time again, and I know how this is going to go. I would have been better off running out of bounds, running like 30-40 more seconds off the clock, and then scoring, because you're going to see what happens here. Now, less than a minute for a team that's only scored one single touchdown all game, that's more than enough for old Tom Brady Jr. in the Texas offense here. They are just going to, once again, never have a negative play. They're never going to miss a pass, and they're just going to go down the field play after play while I have to just sit here and watch them score to ultimately win the game. Now, my biggest problem with this game's version of Heisman is that it forces you to game the system rather than play realistically. Now, like I said earlier, running out of bounds, taking a knee, and not giving them the chance to score is what you pretty much need to do to win close games on Heisman, and I'm just not really a big fan of playing that way. But we're going to lose this game 20-17. I'm a little bit salty about it, but what's really hilarious to me, if you look at it, is their quarterback stats. He had 140 yards, and I can guarantee you that at least 95%, if not 100% of those yards were those 2 touchdown drives in the last couple of minutes where the AI kicked it up a notch, and EA can go suck a dick with that 86% completion rate. I absolutely hated this game specifically because I played so well, and it all came down to those last little cheap 2-minute drives, and I'm over it. We lose, who really cares? So after we've cooled off for a minute, some big things do happen. Number one, I beat Notre Dame. They were 3-1 as well, and to see this team actually win in Sim does make me feel pretty good, but we still are not ranked. Now, number two, and the biggest thing here, is that recruiting dominoes have started to fall. Trent Everett and Brian Paul, the 2 5-stars I decided to pursue, committed, and the outside linebacker specifically is huge for me, but that frees up a ton of room. Now, this is also the time where you're going to start looking for maybe 4 stars that aren't all picked over. Now, there's tons of wide wideouts left, but I need to start focusing on 3 stars, and I just want to get a bunch of guys to fill up my depth chart here. That's my strategy this year. And by the time we beat Vanderbilt and Sim, things are becoming clear to me. Even though I'm ranked 13th, and maybe I should think about pushing for the playoffs, I really want to get this recruiting class up, and I want to win games I know I can win, and that's why Auburn and Mississippi State are going to be the games that I choose, because I think if I can take care of business, I can be like 7-1, possibly within the top 10, and no matter what happens in my last 4 games, I'll just take what the computer gives me. But I just think it's more important to guarantee a solid class, and we got Auburn up next. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because in a lot of ways it was more egregious than the Texas game, if you can believe that. But what you're going to see, first, it starts off perfect. First play of the game, I get a pick 6. What more could you really ask for here? And later it's 7-3, I'm still up. It's near the end of the first. Sam's is going to run a screen pass and he's going to get our lead up to 2 possessions. And it looks like we're kind of cruising here. After that, they would score. I'm going to get a big pass to Warrior. It's going to put us up 21-10, but I make a key mistake. I dared to let the computer get the ball with 2 minutes remaining. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but a team that really hasn't done a whole lot for the whole half all of a sudden starts to get to work and they start stringing together a flawless drive. There's going to be all positive plays. Every single pass is going to find the void in the defense. And when nothing is open, their quarterback's going to turn into prime Lamar Jackson just speeding off of tackles. And I don't really have much more to say about the 2-minute drills by the computer on Heisman at this point. I've already said what I wanted to say, but just to cover my bases here, I don't run cheese plays on defense. I don't run the same play every down. I do my best to use coverage shells. I make adjustments. In this situation, I would make my team play the pass, and I do my best to control the linebacker to maybe take away the intermediate stuff in the middle. And I know some people like to say, hey, there's adaptive AI and it can learn what you do, and it feels really realistic, but I've been burned by these situations too much. At this point, I'm even using coach suggestions just to make sure I'm mixing in my play calling and doing plays that are brand new and fresh. But I digress. You already know what happens. I don't love it, but it is what it is. So now in the third quarter, I'm magically down 31-21. Don't ask questions. I don't want to talk about it, but I drop an absolute laser into the perfect spot for Warrior to pull us within 3, but Auburn, they keep the pressure on. Now they're up 41-28, but I'm calm and collected, and to be honest with you guys, this situation almost feels better than being up with 2 minutes left because I can just string together a drive, get some nice little passes in. Ultimately, I'm going to score with Flemings on the drag route, and now it's a 41-35 game. It ends up being really close here, but I do have a little bit of time left, and this game is going to be very similar to last year's Auburn game. I get a scramble here, I get a chunk of yards, but I have no timeouts, and let me remind you here, the computer, for whatever reason, is not programmed to run prevent, and Warrior is going to get over the top of their whole team, and I'm just going to score a walk-off touchdown here. And I would also like to point out here that never, under any circumstances, you let the sim do this field goal. Do not trust this game to kick field goals for you in a situation like this. They will screw you over, but I'm going to win this one 42-41. I didn't really feel excited about it, didn't really feel good, but sadly, it's how a lot of games feel to me. Looking at the conference standings, it does look like there's a decent chance that even if I won every single remaining game, I would just not make it to the conference championship no matter what. I was thinking of playing South Carolina, but if you look at Mississippi State, they're a rival game. They're also 2-1 in conference play. So I'm just going to go with the original plan and go into it. So this one unfortunately gets hit with that EA stick as well. Now you can see early I'm in the hole and I just get the ball knocked out and it doesn't look good, but eventually I did get this game to be tied at 21, but I got hit with that Super Sim freeze, so I have to restart. Now this time it was much more big play based, and without me turning the ball over, I'm up pretty big. I'm able to pick up stops, and we can go ahead and go to the fourth quarter where I'm up 31-13, and this sweet little pass to Sam's, after I motion him out on the wheel route, it just about seals the deal. I'm able to really get in my groove in this game, and I'm just glad that my third user game didn't come down to the computer doing a 2-minute drill, but I do win this one 51-20, and I've done all that I can do. You can see here all these recruits are popping up. You can see why this game was really important to me, but I took care of business, and now we're sitting at 7-1. Now, outside of me losing to Texas because Heisman will be Heisman, I've played a pretty immaculate season to this point. My recruiting is also going pretty immaculate for the most part. I've been pivoting off of recruits, going to new people, and as it stands now, I'm currently ranked 7th overall, and I would love to get a full class of guys and also be in the top 10. So let's kind of hold our breath here, see if Sims go pretty good for the last few games, and I'm actually going to win pretty huge over South Carolina, so that's a start. But when we look at next week, I am going to lose to Ole Miss, so that's a shame. It was still pretty close, but I feel like we'll definitely lose at least one of these next 2 sim games. Georgia's struggling at 6-4, but we are going to get the win 30-14, good win. And we have one last game against Texas A&M where I'm going to lose 38-32. And even though that pretty much kills my playoff hopes, we still won 9 games. Oklahoma and Alabama went 7-1 in conference play, so they're going to have this titanic number 1 versus number 3 matchup in the SEC championship. And I'm just going to have to settle for the Texas Bowl against BYU. And I think I'm going to skip over it because it doesn't do much for me. It does look like it was a close one, but we did edge it out here 35-32, and that means we've steadily climbed up the ladder, and now we're finally at a 10-3 season in year 5. So the playoffs this year had Texas Tech of all teams bringing it home, but I think shout out to Syracuse for beating top-seeded Alabama. Pretty impressive. Players leaving is light this year with 9 seniors leaving, but we finally got some draft picks. Sam's has been pretty great for us. He's going in the 3rd round. Now Power's going in the 7th round, but thankfully, remember we talked about Cleat earlier, he is going to stay for 1 more year. For recruiting, I tried the best that I could. I got a solid 18th ranked class, and I focused on just getting a bunch of guys rather than allocate all my time into a dozen guys or so. But 34 total prospects, hopefully that does set us up. I got a lot of good guys here, but Dylan, Etienne, and Daly from the transfer portal at the top of all the studs like Everett, Stairs, Matlock. Hopefully that's going to once again just boost our defense up. Now first things first, this schedule going into year 6 is brutal. They have us opening with a kickoff game against 24th ranked Clemson, and from week 7 on, look at this. We got 8th ranked Alabama, 7th ranked Oklahoma, 12th ranked Missouri, 15th ranked Texas A&M, and our overall is pretty decent, pretty much on par with the best of teams right now. But I think the problem for me is that I almost assuredly have to play Alabama and Oklahoma in these user games, and we just really got to hope there's no stumbles in sim along the way. Now if we could just have maybe at best case scenario is probably like a 2-loss season, maybe we can get to the playoffs, we'll see. Week 1, Clemson goes down by a touchdown. That climbs us up to number 14 in the country, and a bunch of recruits are ready to visit against TCU. I'm going to beat the FCS school on my schedule. UMass is in week 3. I'm going to win by 2 touchdowns. And once again, that TCU matchup is pretty big for recruiting. And if you look here, I had 2 5-stars and a 4-star pop up. So you would think that, hey, I won this game right. And I did, but I barely got by it. But what's more important to me is I'm number 5 in the country. So the question to me is this team for real, or am I like a fluke? I guess we'll have to find out. But next up, I am traveling to Florida. It's a top 25 matchup. It's a big test. I could play this one, but we needed to look at the schedule. I know 2 of my user games, the final one's a toss-up, and it's really hard to say, but I think Missouri being 4th in the country right now, they look like a pretty good opponent. I think number 11, Alabama, number 10, Oklahoma, looks like I have to play those. So I'm going to skip this one and see if Sim does me a solid. Now the recruits continue to come in, but at the end here, you can see my championship contender went down, and you already know that we lost this Florida game. It looks like it was kind of close. We went down 21-16, but the season is far from over, but we do have a chance to prove ourselves against Alabama, a team we have not been able to beat yet. They're going to blitz on the very first play of the game, and on the same side that Warriors lined up, Clemens is over there. He's going to get loose to score a touchdown on the very first play of the game. Now they're going to get the ball. It's 3rd down, but Alabama slings it down the field to a nearly wide open guy. They're going to get this really easy pitch and catch. And we both scored so quick, I think this game's final score might be in the triple digits. Now on my drive, I barely get touched here. I'm going to fumble the ball. And they're going to effortlessly see my blitz, and they're going to score another touchdown already. Now this leads me to feeling pressured, so I'm going to go for it on 4th down. And while the play call and the execution was pretty good, those Heisman DBs, they know you got to give it to them. They know exactly how to pop this ball out, so I turn the ball over on downs. Now they're going to score, and sometimes it's just really annoying to see how pathetic defense feels to play. Now I bet you could have like a 99 overall team and still get eaten alive, but they're going to score. I'm going to go down 21-7, but hey, look on the bright side, at least we're playing at home. And I'm coming out here determined. I'm going through my progressions, I'm taking the yards that the defense is giving me, and one truth will always hold true and prevail in college football 25, and that's the fact that sometimes if you're running like a trips or a bunch formation, a guy will be left wide open, and just like that, it's only a 7-point game, and I just need to get a stop. Now it's 3rd and short. They throw a slant, but they fumble. I pick it up. I juke this pathetic attempt at a tackle by the quarterback, and I'm gonna bumble and stumble all the way into the end zone to tie this one up. And remember earlier I talked about fumbles? Well, their receiver was clearly on the ground, but the computer can't challenge it. And you get what you deserve, Heisman. I'm not gonna challenge challenge it for you. I'm going to take these points. And I don't know what's happening right now because they're going to throw a pick on the next play, and maybe like hunkering down and practicing defense seems like maybe it's going to pay off a little bit. But now I want to bring up Cleat for the first time on the field here. He's our starter, and Sam's was really good last year for us. But like I told you, this guy, he's like a 94 overall. He's like our highest rated skill position player. So Cleat has arrived. Now, being an ex-receiver, he can catch at elite levels as well, but just to keep it short, you're going to see him a lot more down the line. But I finished this drive off with a bubble screen. We take a 28-21 lead. I will get a stop, but I immediately take a safety, and for me, this game is it's getting kind of weird. So they will score on a 71-yard touchdown pass, and I'm not even going to dignify with screen time to show it, but I'm going to start driving too. I'm hitting good passes, I'm scrambling around for some big yardage, and eventually I'm going to scramble, buy some time, and hit a streaking Flemings to get us close. And after that, Cleat is going to take it in. But once again, I want you guys to guess what happens. Look down there. There's less than 2 minutes left in the half. The computer is down, so take your bets now as to how maybe you think this drive is going to go. Now, stop me if you've heard this one before, but it's an immaculate, perfect drive by the computer. I'm shocked and appalled that the computer would do this to me again, but keep in mind that I've played nearly perfect in this game. Outside of that safety, I've done really well. I've forced 2 turnovers that I converted into touchdowns, and all I have to show for all of that is being down 37-35, and it's only halftime. Later in the third, I finally clamped down on defense. I may or may not have sold my soul to the devil because I finally get a stop on third down with a sack, and that's going to turn out to be huge because in year 6, Death Valley is finally rocking again, and they're going to miss this field goal. Now, this seemingly revitalized my team, and even though I do pass it several times, the focus here is on Cleat and how complete he makes my team as a whole. I'm going to go to him like 5 or 6 times in this drive, and he's going to cap it off to give us a lead, and I just need maybe one more stop, and I can start draining that clock. On their drive, it's third down, and even though they have a guy wide open, we see the rarest of sights. This is like seeing a white whale. They're actually going to drop the pass, meaning I'm going to get the ball back. And I'm going to do the milkiest of drives. I'm going to drain every ounce of juice that I can out of the clock, and when it's all said and done, I am going to stall close to the end zone, but it's past the 2-minute warning. They had to use a timeout. I go up by 8, but the question I have is if the computer is going to continue its 2-minute drive streak, because we've seen this so many times already. In the first couple of plays, it might make you think, hey, it's going to happen again, but maybe I've turned the corner here. I'll talk about it later, but maybe I can stop blaming Heisman because I'm going to get another pick here, and this doesn't necessarily seal the deal since they do have timeouts, but this little gashing run from Cleat, it's going to put the final nail in the coffin, and I've just beaten Alabama for the first time in like 16 years, 52-37, and confidence is at an all-time high. And I'm going to need it because we're going to head into my second user game against 5-1 Auburn, and it's been like a 1-point game down to the wire the past couple of times we played, so I had to choose this one to step into, and the question is if I can keep up the momentum that we've gained from that Alabama game. Early on, I'm driving, and the ability to run the ball or maybe find Cleat as a check down for big yards, it's given me just a new dimension, but the drive stalls, I kick an early field goal. Then my defense starts to show up. I get a stop on 3rd and short, I get the ball back, and just a few plays later, I'm going to catch them with that corner route to Cone. I'm going to take a 10-0 lead. In the second, it's 10-7, and I get this pass that I intentionally threw short in the red to fit in between 3 guys in the zone. It was a really great play, and that would lead to Cleat cashing it in once again for a 17-7 lead. On their next possession, the defense once again is stepping up, and when I think back on it and we look at this game, I think this is where things started to click for me on the defensive side of the ball, so I'm going to get the ball back. And I see this as a golden opportunity to put the game away and just in general learn from my past mistakes. I'm gashing them with runs from Cleat, Blank is getting yardage scrambling, and just when they want to stop the run, I can go to maybe like a 4 or 5 receiver set, I can slice them down the field, and here's the really important part. Avoid their 2-minute drive, you already know. So on this run from Cleat, I intentionally go down, I give myself up by tapping square because there's no way I'm giving this dirty Heisman computer a minute just to negate all the work that I've done, and I end up eventually scoring with just 8 seconds left. It makes it pretty much impossible for them to drive, and I got a 24-7 lead at halftime. Now in the second half, I do the greatest drive in the history of NCAA football. I am exaggerating, but this drive started at halftime, and by the time I'm through just taking my time, chewing the clock, there's barely over 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. This was almost an 11-minute drive on a 7-minute quarter game. That's that's pretty nuts, but this drive does stall. I only get a field goal, but I'm up 27-7, and this one is over. I'm gonna win this one 27-14, and Flea controlling the ball with 125 yards rushing, along with a defense that's maybe clicking a little more now. It makes this team feel pretty dangerous, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the year goes. Mississippi State is a game that I cannot play, but I believe last year they beat me by like 30 points, so it's good to see a 49-3 beatdown in Sim, but finally, it's time for the last huge user game of the year. This is a monster game of the week. The number 4 LSU Tigers are traveling to Norman to face the second-ranked Sooners. They have home field, they have the ratings advantage, and this is a big opportunity to prove if my team is legit or not. Now this game obviously has huge SEC championship implications, and you need a conference championship to get a first round bye, and we've seen in the UAB video that it's very important to get that first round bye. Early on it's 3rd and 10, I get the defensive look that I want, I find the tight end on the corner for the score, but look at this blatant late hit here. My guy just stays down, he does a little snow angel, I've never seen that before, so it's pretty cool. Picking up in the second, it's a 7-3 ball game. The number 2 toughest stadium in the country is roaring, and I'm gonna throw an interception, and it's exceptionally difficult to play on the road today, but Oklahoma would find the open guy a few plays later, and they take the lead. On the very next offensive play, Flea, of all people, is going to fumble, and sometimes it feels like the game just decides that you don't get to have any fun, and they're going to quickly extend their lead to 17-7, and here's the kicker of everything. Keep in mind that Flea, at this stage in the season, he's the highest overall rated halfback in the entire nation, and for the second drive in a row, he's going to fumble again. And when they get the ball, it's 3rd and short. I get caught trying to run commit here, and it's going to lead to a very wide open, huge pass play. They're going to reach the end zone again, and at this point, I'm getting the brakes beat off of me. I would eventually stop the bleeding by catching them pressing my receivers. It would give me a big gain through the air, and a score here is going to put me within 10 points, so it's not the worst in the world, especially after I stop them on the next drive. So I have a chance to drive before half and make this game pretty close, but the worst case scenario happens. I'm going to get hit when I'm trying to throw the ball. The ball's going to pop up, a defensive lineman just scoops it out of the air, and they're going to return it all the way back, and it might just be me, but I don't think today is my day. Picking up in the third, it's still a 2-possession game, but they just run a jet touch pass. They go untouched for about 135 yards, and with a deficit this big, this one's pretty much over. They go on to win 45-35, and I did try to come back. I made it a 10-point game, but honestly, it really wasn't even that close, but I got humbled today. To keep the glass half full, I am still number 8 in the country, but there are a lot of negatives with this loss. Counting this one and the Florida loss earlier, it's pretty much impossible for me to make the SEC championship, which means I cannot get a first round bye no matter what. And another huge negative is that I have to rely on the sim engine. It's bad, it's not good at all. I have 3 games left, and I'm probably not going to win every single one of them, so I guess we just got to let Jesus take the wheel and see what happens. So the first game, I get by Georgia 35-23, okay, looking good. And against 5-5 Missouri, I crush them 42-41, and that means we got 1 game left at Texas A&M. Now they weren't that good in this dynasty. Thankfully, I do actually go 3-0. I close out the season, but notice I'm number 3, and when I look at that, I think it's likely that I could have lost one of these games and still gotten to the playoffs. But if you look at the conference standings, Oklahoma went 8-0, Kentucky went 7-1, so I'm just gonna have to sit this one out. Looks like our opponents in the playoff will be Troy in the first round, and I don't want to take them lightly, but this might just be the warm-up game that we need. So here's the bracket overall. The Rice Owls actually got a first round bye, and Kentucky ended up winning the SEC championship. And look at this. I want you to tell me how number 2 Kentucky beat number 1 Oklahoma, and they didn't move up to number 1, and they had Oregon just jump over them. And if you look even closer, how am I ahead of Oklahoma even though they beat me in a head-to-head matchup? Let's try not to think about it too much, I guess. But focusing on just me, it means that my path through the left side of the bracket might not be that hard, but I do kind of want Oklahoma to make it all the way through for a potential rematch, but we're not that far ahead yet. Let's just focus on the game. I have to apologize to Troy. You're in my home state, and I'm sure everyone there is excited to be in the playoffs, but welcome to the Thunderdome, kid. You're in Death Valley at night for this one, and the Tigers are hungry. So let's pick up on a 3rd and 17. They're going to run a draw play, and I can't wrap my head around how they do what they do here. Their halfback goes untouched. not only does he get the 17 yards, he just goes ahead and scores. And keep in mind that right now, Tiger Stadium is back to the 8th toughest stadium in the country, and the computer just ignores it. They aren't affected by home field advantage, so that's why they could audible at the start. But that's neither here nor there. They score. I answer back by stepping up in the pocket. I find this little hole in the zone, and Crumpler is going to just stroll in. And I end up stuffing them on 3rd and short near the goal line to stop a touchdown. That was pretty big because when I get the ball back, I have the blueprint for success. And if they give me a weak box, Cleat is just going to punish them, and he's running hard right now. And this drive is going to be capped off with an absolutely nasty contested catch by Warrior to put me up in the game. After that, Troy just doesn't learn their lesson. They try to leave Warrior one-on-one. It doesn't work out too well for them. I'm going to get another huge chunk play, and after that, Blank finds some room up the middle. And honestly, after this score, I never look back. Now I'm going to leave this one here with a screen play to Cleat. He looks like he's going to go down like 3 different times, but he keeps going, and eventually he gets tackled into the end zone. But I think this cements Troy's Cinderella story is over. The dream is dead. Now this one ends up getting to Super Sim, and it freezes, but I am up 33-10 at halftime, so I think it's safe to say that I win this one. No one's going to argue that. Back to the bracket, Texas, Michigan State, myself, and Syracuse move on. It's a shame that Oklahoma already went down, but if you take a little deeper look at Kansas State, they're really not that good. I would say they're about even with Troy, so it's really not like I'm going against some really tough opponent here, so maybe I can do well. So going into this one, I reviewed the earlier game at Auburn because it feels like that was the blueprint, and I studied what I did, I built upon that, and we're gonna try to emulate the things that worked in that game for the rest of the playoffs. And when it comes to offense, I feel great. Outside of turning the ball over like I did against Oklahoma, I'm just very comfortable, and the yin and yang of reading defenses and audibling to the correct play has become second nature. If they play heavy on the pass with like 6 DBs on the field, Cleat can punish them hard, and if they ever start to have 6 or more in the box, you already know that passing is the thing I love to do the most. But I think this offense is just built perfectly to accommodate what I like to do, but they actually respect Cleat a good bit here. But I'm just going to start slinging it, and I'm going to eventually get the first points of the game. So now I want to elaborate on defense, talk about what I've learned. Now starting with coach adjustments, you can set your zone depth for various zones, and it helps a lot so you don't just have wide open stuff deeper down the field. I set them a little bit deeper than I normally do, but the sentiment is the same. And on normal down and distance, I almost always hit triangle and right stick down just to cover the underneath pass. And for me, the big adjustment was almost never coming out in the play that I'm actually going to run. Now, for example, I'll call a cover 0 blitz. I'll let the offense get to the line, then I'll audible to like a Tampa 2 or a cover 3, and it seems to at least at bare minimum put you at an even playing field against the computer. Some other important things here are coverage shells. I'm not sure how much they help out, but I will run them pretty much every play. And I even got 2 more little quick tips for you guys. I got more coming. Never play man-to-man in this game. It's absolute garbage. And also never hard commit to a play type if you don't have a decent guess what the computer is going to do. I used to think it was really good to pass commit, even if it was like 1st and 10 or 2nd and 6, but it just left running lanes open. But all those things really helped to push my defensive play to new levels once I kind of figured it out. And it's really not as simple as you would think, maybe just picking a play, coming out, hoping it works. And before I forget, never blitz until they're at least across the 50 or somewhere in that area. It just doesn't feel worth it most of the time. So hopefully that at least helps 1 or 2 people out. So this is a low scoring game still deep in the 3rd, but it's 4th and 1, and I'm going to go for it with Cleat. I'm going to pick it up and then hit this perfectly placed corner route to keep the drive alive later, and that will lead to Cleat putting me up 14-3 in the 4th quarter. But with all that said, all that hyping up of my defense, this is still Heisman, and sometimes there's just not a lot you can do when the computer wants to score. I give up a huge pass, and then it's 4th and goal from like the 15-yard line, and they somehow get this pass off and score, and they're going to score again later. I'm not even going to show that, but that means it's magically 15-14 with me trailing, but it's my turn to get the 2-minute drill. It's my turn to be Heisman. And this one's not easy. I definitely don't have a robo quarterback finding every open play. And there's even this really scary 4th and 9 where thankfully I picked the right play. I have a wide open guy, but the clock is ticking, and here's what it all comes down to. Blank drops back. He rolls out to buy some time. Rather than scramble, he holds on to it. He's patient. I use playmaker control with the right stick to move the X receiver over, and that's just the perfect play to give us the lead with just 15 seconds left. Now the computer did try to steal this one from us, but that final throw, that final drive was just great. I love to see it, and we're moving on with a 22-15 victory. Now, following the win, the bracket was so close to being an all SEC Final Four. If Oklahoma held up their end of the bracket, we could have still had that potential rematch. That is, if I make it. But we got number 2 Kentucky, number 3 LSU, number 7 Texas. They're all in the Final Four teams. Syracuse is hanging on as well. We played Texas when we were much weaker, and we avoided playing them on the schedule this year. Now they're 12-2. They had a resurgence. They're coming off a huge win against top-seeded Oregon, and this should be a tough test. But remember, the last time I jumped in to play Texas on a user game, they Heismaned me with 2 last-second drives, and I have to keep that in mind. I talked about my defensive game plan, and I don't need to touch on it too much now, but another thing I didn't mention was my bend but not break philosophy. I can give up yards, I can give up decent sized plays, but the goal is to never give up that huge play and just always be ready when it matters, like you'll see here when I barely get the stop on 3rd and inches to force a punt. On my drive, I'm just running it over and over and over. I'm putting the sleeper hold on Texas until they get out of this little 5-man box. I get great yardage, and eventually they're going to put 7 in the box. And this right here is more or less blind luck because I audible Warrior on the streak here, and it turns out they were doing a safety blitz, and that's going to be the first blood drawn in this game. My defense is playing lights out. Like I said, ever since that Auburn game, a light switch just flickered onto my head, and they just can't stretch the field like they want to do. They can't get any space, and I'm going to get the ball back again. So this drive, I'm going to go full ball control, but I do want to shine some light on just how good my offensive line is. 3 of the 5 players here are impact players, and combined with the Cleat being a 94 overall, it's just a mismatch no matter who I play. I would say my offensive line and Cleat probably average out to like 92 or 93 overall, and when the rubber meets the road and it's the playoffs, it's great to have this unit to fall back on. It lets me change things up from my usual air raid style, but this drive I basically run the ball and I'm still successful, and I can't tell you the last time that I did that. I'm always passing. Down near the end of the half, it's 14-3, and I love how the tables have seemingly turned. Now I'm telling you, if you just spend like 1 or 2 plays running down the clock, you can turn into the villain and have the computer throw their virtual controller at you. But ultimately, I'm going to find my guy here with that sweet little floater, and I'm going to go into halftime with a 21-3 lead. And I'm going to go on another clock chewing drive, and in the 4th quarter, it's 4th and 1, and just like a shark, I smell blood in the water, and Cleat is going to put us up 28-3, and I think that's about all you need to know. This one, it's over. So now I made a big boo-boo. You can see the screen we're on, it's very confusing. I'm playing Syracuse. I'm up 38-10 in the national championship. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have a 3-month-old baby. I've said this earlier, sometimes I forget to record, unpause and pause. But I played this virtuoso national championship game, and I didn't realize it wasn't recording until just now. Now you can see it's 4 minutes in the 4th, and my options here are to just exit the replay, take the L, and get you guys some real footage, or tell you guys the truth, and I'm just gonna tell you guys the truth. But keep in mind, I have like 20 hours of this dynasty recorded, and it's just unfortunate this is one of the places I messed up at. But there is a silver lining here. That's the fact that you can watch cinematic replays of big plays, and we can just do that real quick. Hopefully it's good enough. Now it starts early with a great pass to Cone on the sideline on my first drive, and going ahead, my defense was playing lights out all game, forcing a punt here. Now we're gonna see Crumpler get loose for a 31-yard touchdown, and it starts to crack this game open just a little bit. From there, I just keep controlling the ball with nice little bubble pass audibles to keep the chain moving, and Fleming would eventually take it in to get us another score. And I gotta talk about Fleming, he was huge in this game. He's like my underneath guy, and he finds plays when my speedsters are sucking up all the coverage to stop the big plays. And Clemens is also another guy I didn't mention too much, but on this play, he broke the game open here. He's gonna do a simple drag route. I have so much time in the pocket, he's able to get a lot of space. He makes a nice juke move and uses his speed to get a 76-yard score, and this is when I was starting to feel it here. But I still gotta throw in little sacks like this just to show how far our defenses came along, because I don't win this game or the playoffs without them. An RPO near the goal line lets me score again, and the final 2 plays, they really seal it here. I'm gonna get an interception in the end zone, and this is about a time where maybe they could have came back, but that was pretty big, And it just makes sense for this video to end pretty much with a Warrior touchdown. He ran a perfect route, he gets a contested catch, and that's what puts us up 38-10, and that catches us up. So going back to the actual gameplay, there's not really much to talk about for the end. I just chew the clock until the time runs out, and LSU is going to be your 2043 national champions. And I think this one was funny to me because I never really got close to the SEC championship. But what's cool about the 12-team playoff is that you really don't need to. It doesn't really matter. So to cap off this video, 96 overall Cleat is going to be a first round draft pick, and after that playoff run, I can see why. There's also a lot of guys I could argue that should be drafted, but former 5-star Ralph Stockton is going in the 3rd, and I have to end off with this. It's my final class. It doesn't really matter, but I got the #1 class. I learned a ton about recruiting along the way in this video, trying a bunch of different things, but I think if you had asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would say that I would never get a top class, but that was a fun video. Now hopefully I got this one down to a much shorter run time overall, and if you made it this far, you're a real one. I really appreciate it. Subscribe for more content, comment in general. I'd love to make more of these videos for you guys, so let me know what you'd like to see rebuilt in the future, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.